If you don't produce enough, there is not enough to go around. When there is not enough to go around, there are more riots on the street, democracies weaken, there are more conflicts and wars. AI is a tool like any other. Time to harness it and see if we can double our productivity.
I'm so excited to be having Mihir Shukla joining us. Mihir is the CEO and co-founder of Automation Anywhere.
We run about 300 million AI agents that are doubling very rapidly. Anybody who thinks this is for the future, it is already here. It's not clear that you will lose your job to AI, but it is absolutely clear that you will lose your job to somebody else using AI.
How do you think about positioning yourself, even how you talk to your kids right now? How do you set yourself up for success?
What we found was that within 3 months, we could take a person who was flipping burgers at $15 an hour to a $120,000 AI job. The technology is moving faster and we are not preparing people fast enough.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mission Daily. This is your host, Stephanie Postles. And today I'm so excited to be having Mihir Shukla joining us. Mihir is the CEO and co-founder of Automation Anywhere. Mihir, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you because, I know when we had our quick call many months ago, I was hearing some of your backstory of who you are and what you did and what you're building. And I was like, we have to have him on the show. So thank you. And to start, I'd love to hear about, let's give some scope of Automation Anywhere. Quickly, what is it? And how big is this company? Just so people know who we're talking to here.
Automation Anywhere we are an enterprise software company in the space of AI agents and automation. From the very beginning, we reimagined how work could happen. And along the journey, we invented few technologies. And as a result, today, we have over 5,000 customers in 90 countries. We run about 300 million AI agents that are doubling very rapidly. So you can imagine that some days it will be 1 billion AI agents. So anybody who thinks this is for the future, it is already here. We are doing some of the very cutting edge stuff. Most recently, we are going to announce a completely new type of most advanced AI agent that world hasn't seen yet. So we have fun doing work with the technology and seeing the impact play out.
Amazing. Okay. And you've been the CEO of this company for 21 years, more?
That's right.
Okay. So I want to go way back then, because I know you're from a small town in India, right? Tell me about your origin story and how you go to creating a company of this size.
Born and grew up in a small town in India. One of those towns where I hadn't seen a computer till I was ready to go to the college. And then I was introduced to a computer. And it was pretty cool, a cool device that can do so many things. And that brought me to United States. And then I had a chance to work with about 5 multi-billion-dollar journeys in different roles. One of the first one was Netscape, and I saw the birth of the internet. And then one of the third e-commerce startup on the planet, and then smartphones and few other exciting journeys. It only proves that I worked with smart people and learned a lot. So by age 32 or 33, if I'm right, I'd done 5 multi-billion-dollar journeys. And so as I was looking to do my next venture as a CEO, I was wondering what makes sense to do because you need to believe in something that powers you. And so I went back to my origin and I said, what made a difference in my life? And it was the birth of the introduction of the computer. And I by that time I had seen a huge part of the world that was sitting in a cubicles doing work that I didn't think that's what human beings were designed for, to do mundane work. So the passion was to, if you were to do a computer in this day and age, what would it look like? And it looked like AI-driven automation that would do things. This is the new generation computer. Decided to start working on it, and here we are. I'm more excited about the years ahead, though, because finally, so many technologies have caught up to its true potential.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so the one thing I did want to kind of circle back to was you were saying you had a chance to work at these really big companies.
Yeah.
How did you just get a chance to get in these really amazing, well-known companies? And like do that multiple times?
I think combination of couple of things. One is if you work with smart people, then smart people will carry you around if you keep producing for them.
Yep.
The second is that your ability to take risk and not get comfortable. I think I was having so much fun, making new standards and making things up. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good. If you have fun with it, then life finds its way, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I think the longer I've worked and been in different spaces, the more I see it's like it really is like knowing a lot of the right people who can like pull you into spaces that you maybe would be like, well, I didn't know of that. And now I trust you, you trust me. Of course, I'll like come along here with you or work with you in this way that maybe I wouldn't have even thought about. So I've definitely seen them.
Yeah.
So what did you see people doing that you were like, you shouldn't be doing that? Like, what was the first aha moment that you're like, no way?
My entire professional career is in Silicon Valley. So, but you go outside of it, even within Silicon Valley, but if you go outside of it, world is a very, very different place. Mm-hmm. There are thousands and tens of thousands of people sitting in a cubicle doing something, whether they're processing mortgage applications or claims or invoices or supply chain aspect. There are so many people doing things across, 2,000-3,000 different systems that we all operate on in large enterprises. And I could see that how computer brought our productivity to the level we are now. But now we have reached a point where it isn't really helping us. We are shuffling between applications and copying from one to another. And what a small program of 10 lines could do, we spend a day doing it at times. And why would you do that? Why wouldn't we unleash human energy towards more worthy things? So again, the vision I had was I'm an amateur student of history and I've studied the early industrial revolutions. After every revolution, the human energy got reallocated to more important problems. And as a result, the lifespan doubled, the health improved, the democracies came, the art and science improved. Across every aspect of our standard of living, we made progress because we didn't have to work to live, right? So the idea was behind what we do today is we have a moment like this in our time where if we can reallocate 70% of human energy to more worthy causes, what problems we couldn't solve. And we have problems of our times from hunger and poverty and climate and many others. And if we can focus on other challenges, we can solve anything. So time to stop processing invoices and claims and let's focus on something more important.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I think you mentioned before that like AI, it's bigger than just business. Like this is a societal thing. I think you were mentioning that like we need to double productivity. And I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on like why AI is like not just something that's a nice to have. It's like we better start using it well so we can do these things.
Yeah. I think about why we should do something. Just because AI is around, why use it? And the reason is that our society always has been a twin plane engine, I call it. One where we are improving productivity every year, and the second is more people working in our society. And as long as we can remember, it has always been this way. The two twin engines have been working. And first time in human history, what we are experiencing is there are less people working. And globally, it will be a 3% decline. Very few countries have a slight increase. Everybody else is on a decline. And this is likely going to continue for foreseeable future. So imagine one of the engine of economic growth is no longer there. And nobody knows how to operate in that environment because we've never experienced that phenomena before. So mathematically, you have to improve the productivity double. Your one engine has to work doubly hard to just produce what we are producing. Let me put it in context what happens when that does not happen, because that makes it clear why we have to do it. If you don't produce enough, there is not enough to go around. When there is not enough to go around, there are more riots on the street, democracies weaken, There are more conflicts and wars because any other way to do it is to take it from somebody else. Just look around us, and it feels like it has started, right? And we see the economy of ample is no longer there. So the best way to solve some of these things is to produce enough, so there's enough to go around, and we don't have to fight for it like the way we do sometimes today. So there is more at stake at our ways of life, our healthcare, our bridges, our social security. All of these are connected if we don't produce enough. So AI is a tool like any other capability. If there is a new energy source, you should harness, could be many other things, but AI is available. It has reached a certain point. Time to harness it and see if we can double our productivity. That will be challenging. It's not an easy goal. We had internet, computers, every software ever written, mobile phones, everything you can imagine. And if I ask you to double the productivity that was produced by all of them, that would be an interesting challenge. But I think AI has some amazing capabilities, so we should harness it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm imagining your two-engine plane right now. And so just to make sure I get the concept of, like, you've got the workforce and then you've got productivity as the two engines. And workforce is going down.
Yeah.
So productivity obviously has to go up to compensate for less people working.
Yeah.
But you think that will solve that by just having more productivity, even though people are without, jobs maybe? Like, you still think if you produce more, it'll be okay, versus these people don't have jobs and maybe there's a whole bunch of other things that could be happening while they don't have jobs, even if they're getting provided for.
You will automate tasks, but work will not go away because there is plenty to do, like it has happened in previous industrial revolution. People have always wondered, somebody told me in 1965 or something, when somebody said it's the end of work as we know it.
Yeah.
This has been said quite a few times. So I think the mistake we make when we think about this thing is we think this is the best version of the world that is possible. And in some sense, it is the best version of the world we have known. But there is so much better world that could exist that we should imagine. And that's where the future growth and job prospect happens, right? So I mentioned to people, one way to think about it is, imagine how your experience is when you go to a spa or a Apple store and, delightful experience. Why isn't your experience going to healthcare like that? Why isn't your experience in a bank like that, or almost every other experience? Why is it not delightful? And take an example, we personalize all of our devices, and I cannot personalize my healthcare. My medicine still works at a rule of masses. Everybody takes the same. There is so much opportunity for things to be better. And in pursuit of that, we'll create a better world. And that is where future job growths will come from. I think it will be a transition, but the best data we have available on this says that 11 million new jobs will be created. This is the World Economic Forum data. And 9 million jobs will be transformed. So it's a huge transition. But keep in mind, it's not like we have 11 million somewhere on a planet that we know, somewhere on an island. These are all the people we have. So the best thing to do is the 9 million jobs that are being transformed, they will take the 11 million jobs and will be still short of 2 million people because it's declining population. So if we can get this right, it's possible to make this transition happen smoothly.
Yeah. Well, in one way, this is also kind of a nice optimistic view of what's coming, because at least a lot of the job market stuff that I read now, it's pretty pessimistic. It's like people can't find new jobs. There's a lot of jobs that just won't hire anymore, that like people are pausing. And so with this view, it's like there could be a couple million that can't even get filled. So how do you think about, like, if I'm that person being like, I want to have a job maybe, or I want to build something that will be worthwhile in the future, how do you think about positioning yourself, even how you talk to your kids right now, of like, how do you set yourself up for success?
The real gap is in a skill set, right? So even though there are jobs out there, they can't be filled with the people that have the skills that they have. So the way to think about, I think for all of us, we should think about that the job that or the task that we do today will be automated with AI about 20 to 80% of it will be automated. And it varies by function. So if you're in a customer service, 40% of all customer requests can today be handled autonomously, no human in the loop. So this is true for us, for example, today, and many of our customers. It wasn't this way 2 years ago. So it has come a long way. Let's say if you are in a tax department in finance, 90% of maybe more of tax calculations would be autonomous because there are a set of rules that govern the tax and set of numbers, and you apply rules to the numbers, and so now enough technology is here to make that happen, for example. So if you assume that, and it is wise to assume that, because if you assume that today, although not all of it is true today, you have time to do something about it. Because I am of a firm belief that it is better for, instead of things happening to you, it is better for you to happen to things.
Yeah, I like
So
it.
if you wait for it, things will happen to you. But there's enough time now where you start thinking about it differently so that you could happen to things. And if you think of AI as your assistant, as your coworker, somebody that you can use to do better job, then you can completely transform whatever your job is. Even if you're a programmer, you could program better. If you're a finance person, you could make better strategic decisions and so on. To answer your question, I think you start with that mindset and start reimagining your job. Because if somebody else did, it might be a little late.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I want to shift into, I know I was just mentioning like, what would you do different today? But I want to kind of shift into like company building, because I think you mentioned or you said somewhere about like these, there's all these micro startups. They can launch with like 1/10 of the capital. They can move at insane speeds. And so I want to hear like your vision right now for this, for any entrepreneur, any person looking to start something or thinking about it. Like, what do you see in this space?
I think it's unbelievable. And I'm learning as it is happening. You see these micro startups that are able to start companies with 1/10 the resources and the speed at which they are able to move. I remember when I had to do the automation anywhere most recently, just the legal documents, the amount of legal documents I needed. Now with a click of a button, they're all available and you can customize. I know founders who are non-programmers and they have created apps and software with the help of LLM tools. And I asked them, how does this work? And they say, I have no idea. LLM generated the code and it put it in, it works. And why do I care? People who are able to combine core competencies in a way that I had never seen before. So previously, if I'm an advertising executive and I have to create a software for advertising, I have to translate it to somebody else, and the translations always have a loss. Now, the advertising executive can create an app. I know of one particular person who could create an application for it, and it's wonderful. An application created by advertising executive for advertising executive. So you are seeing these amazing possibilities in many micro startups. They're handling many things fully autonomously, as many things because they have a luxury of starting scratch. So they are managing it like the way you would manage today. In terms of reaching people, they are more tuned to social media and various other methods that they grew up with. So they have a more natural access to it. So a very different way to approach it than how somebody like me and people of my generation did. And it's exciting. Mm-hmm. It is more level playing field, more opportunities, easier to get started.
Yep. I love that. So if you were to get started today, what would you do? Like if you had to start all over from scratch with not much money?
If I were to start today, I would look for authenticity. So I would combine two of my passions. I'm not a rock climber, but I'm going to use that example. If I'm a rock climber and I'm a programmer, if I created a video game that does rock climbing, it would be the most authentic game I could create. It's the most authentic expression of myself.
Mm.
And so combining two of your passion, it could be, and I see this beginning of it in my children and that generation, where they are combining two branches versus how I grew up, being good, combining in just one. I did software engineering and programming. They are doing neuroscience and economics
Mm-hmm.
and rock climbing and video game designing and something else
Yep.
and something else. I think amazing possibilities await us
Mm-hmm.
because so many of us are not just one thing. That's how, at least, I got a job, but we are more than one thing, and combining that will create unique, as unique as each one of us are.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I'd actually love now to talk a bit about your kids because I know you said that you've had certain aha moments with them. I think
Yeah.
one was around the way they search for things. And I would love for you to go into that because it showed me like there are literally lessons all around. No matter what you're doing, where you're at, you can learn by just watching and being in tune and being present. And so I'd love for you to share this story of your
Yeah.
aha moment around search.
I'll share two stories. Maybe let me start by saying that I had a chance to go to my daughter's high school and talk about, they invite CEOs from the Silicon Valley to talk about what are the career possibilities and what do we
Mm-hmm.
do. And so I was delivering the world of AI agents and some of the amazing things we do. And they were not impressed. And so, I took it a little personally. I thought I'm not telling the story well, and that's my
Uh-huh.
job. So how could I not? So I tried harder, and I wasn't working. And so, at one point, one of the students asked and say, "If you think this is so amazing, then how do you do it today?" And so I describe how we work today. We are in cubicles, and we work the way we work today. And they said, "Why would you do it that way?" And I said, "You're right." Then there's no reason to do. That's how it is. But there's no reason to
Yeah.
keep doing it that way. I think what it reminded me was that disruption of one generation is a common sense for next. And if you keep that
Mm.
in mind, it will keep us grounded.
Yep.
Because all of this is disruption for some other generation. This is just, there isn't any other way to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing. That tells
Yeah.
you that you're on the right path. The story that you are referring to is and there's so many stories. There was one where we're going to London in one of our family trips, and we needed to find out if we need, how cold it is and what kind of jackets we need to carry. And so I observed three of us, me, my daughter who was 20 years back then, and then another one who was 12 years back then. And we three of us approached the problem differently. So I obviously took out my phone, go to the weather app, check the 7-day forecast, something everybody can relate to. My 20-year-old daughter asked Alexa and say, "Alexa, what is the weather like in London for next 7 days?" And she tried to figure out an answer to that question. And my 12-year-old, she said, "Alexa, do I need a jacket in London next week?"
Mm.
And what I observed is that I had 6-step process for the same outcome. My eldest daughter had 2-3 steps, and the youngest one had a 1-step process. And nobody taught her, right? I mean, this is how she's wired. It reminds you the art of prompt engineering that, you
Yeah.
could get to something in a 1 step.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Did you take that and bring anything into automation anywhere from that where you're like, all right, too many steps, people. We need to cut them all down so this next generation can get into this agent space and build.
We are all challenging ourselves on that. And it is a ongoing learning. But every time we learn, there is this aha moment. So think about how work gets done. So, 32 emails, 70 messages, 4 meetings, 3 beers later, you produce something, right? That's kind of how we work, sort of. It almost feels like we are the weaver of our generation. We are weaving by every email and every message, we are weaving threads by threads by threads. And now you go to the AI tools and you say, you're not asking AI tool, did you send an email? You're asking for a specific outcome, right? So you're getting to work in 1 or 2 or 3 steps, like I mentioned in the previous example. You're getting straight to the outcome. And so we are challenging ourselves. Do we need to think about work entirely differently? And so we did this exercise internally where we said, before you start a work in your usual way, where you will start with some document or sending an email or something, pause. Think for an hour or two carefully that is there a 3-step process to getting to an answer? And do you really have to do 32 steps for this? I know that's how we work because you know what an outcome you want, you know who all the people you have. We now slowly beginning to understand the art of prompt engineering. Can we do that with people? Can we do that, And it was hard at first, but every time we got to a 3-step process for something, it was unbelievable. And we said, what were we doing before? And why were we doing it that way? Why wouldn't you get to the outcome faster? So it's a learned skill because for too long we have been taught how to, this task-based learning, task-based doing work. Very post-World War II kind of mindset of how work happens.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. Especially thinking about how we were trained to learn, like you said, like the way the model in the education system, specifically like public school for sure, was built versus what we need now. And so how do you get people to question that themselves and like think differently about trying to figure out like, do we need to do it this way? Like that feels hard if you've been doing it that way for a long time.
That's right. I give people example for those of you play chess or any kind of board game. Like sometimes chess has a puzzle that checkmate in 3 steps. And you know how to do that on 14 steps, but you're trying to figure out how to do it in 3 steps. Most of the work has the same challenge. Is there a 3-step version of that? It's an interesting challenge for sure.
So I know that you also mentioned, because now that this started from like your kids and talking about that, was your dinner time conversations and how you told them anything they talked about couldn't be answered from AI or something along those lines, which I thought was very interesting. And so I'd love to hear about that from you.
As you can tell, I use my children to kind of learn from them because they are naturally wired to think. As I said, it's a disruption for us, but they are wired that way. So I was thinking, how do the digital natives or AI natives, they're more than digital natives, how do they think? So I tried to make in a dinner table, we made a rule that they can't tell me anything that a ChatGPT or Siri or Alexa would tell us. So trying to change the nature of the conversation. And I was wondering, how would that be? What kind of a human conversation would that lead to? So, we love our nature hikes and as a family. So talking about, the bird with largest wingspan or something. And they said, Dad, that's not a fair question because you're asking us a question that ChatGPT and many other tools can answer it better any day. You have to ask a different question. And I said, that's right. This is not about answers. It's about which questions are important that are worth asking. So we took an example of a Patagonia where, because of various challenges there previously, the ecosystem is out of sync. Things have been messed up in certain parts of Patagonia. And I said, what would it take to restore it? Now, that's a human question. That's an important question, how to restore certain ecosystems. And it's a complicated one because you introduce certain species and balance things out. But that was such a delightful conversation because it went on for 3 dinners. In between, they had to use tools to research it. There were 4-6 different answers. There wasn't just a one answer, right? I mean, it wasn't something you could read in a book. And that entire experience was such a human conversation, one that we valued a lot, one that was important to us. And it generated a lot of thoughts and ideas. We could combine various ideas together. And it occurred to me that if these conversations are happening on every dinner table, what problems we couldn't solve, right? That's the future. If we only know, if you can come up with all the right questions.
There you go. Yeah, I love that. And it's a good thing they all came back with 4 different answers because if they came back with the same one, then they all used the same prompt and they just stopped there.
That's right.
So are there any skills that you would encourage young people now, like to think about? I mean, to me, what I hear here is like critical thinking and adding in the humanness to our answers. But like, what else are you thinking about with like what this world's going to need and how to stay relevant.
Fortunately, this generation is better than mine in my view, but the first skill is what are the right questions? Because the challenge with AI system is that it only knows the answers. The power is in what questions are right. So I think that's an important one. If we learn to ask right questions, we'll have assistance from AI. I think the second is combining multiple disciplines. I think when you combine medical and economics together, there is a huge opportunity to take power of our medical knowledge to 7 billion plus people if you can get it right. So multiple skills and passions coming together, which will be more reflective of how we are. Each one of us are interested in more than one thing, or many of us. So we'll be more authentic human being, will express ourselves better, and in that process will create these unique things that we haven't dreamt of.
I love that. I mean, it feels like such a fun space that we're entering into, because now we have more time than ever. We're not having to do things just to survive. So we've got lots of time, and we're in a space that's not like, at least how I grew up, was like, go to college, pick your thing. Finance for me originally, stay in your thing. If you switch out of it, you'll have to restart all over again. And it was very, I would just say, there wasn't encouragement of like, what do you love? What feels good? What are your hobbies as much? I was like, hey, stay focused on this path. And if you get off it, you're gonna be done.
That's right.
And so it feels pretty fun now to be encouraging people, and even myself, like, find the things that I like and I'm just genuinely curious about and I have passion for. And then what else do I have? Oh, I've got media experience. I have finance experience, like blending it all together. That's way more human anyways.
Yeah.
So,
but in some sense, you're doing it from finance to what you do now. It sounds like you're living your dream. Yeah.
I know. It was, but it was a weird shift of thinking like, here's what my mom and dad told me. And now I'm like, I'm going to go over here, like way far away. But it is a fun space that we're in. So, I mean, to me, you're like a pro in this whole AI agent world. So I want to hear first, I think it'd be helpful for people listening who are like, I actually don't know what an agent is. Like, what's the difference from an AI agent versus just a chat bot that I have seen? And like, how is it, like, what are some exciting things in this space that you're seeing that maybe some people wouldn't be noticing?
Yeah. So I think the big difference is the AI agents can be very goal-oriented. So you can give AI agents a goal and say, let's say you can tell them that I have this order and I need to ship this order. That's the goal. And you ask AI agents to go figure out how to accomplish that goal. And so what AI agents would typically do is they have enough tools at their disposal. So they'll go check the inventory in various warehouses and figure out where to ship it from. If there is not enough inventory, and you have to let AI agent know what tools they have. So they could have another tool available where they can look for alternate parts. So there is a whole method by which AI agents can look for, what alternate parts would work if it is not this part. They can pick that part from inventory, ship the order, and accomplish the goal. Think about it. This is what, as a human being, we would do. But it would take us longer, many hours and many clicks, and we'll go through various systems to figure it out. But to AI agents, if you set a goal, they will get you there. I think one way to think about our GPS in car, right? You will say, I want to go there, get me there, right? And it will find you the shortest path. And many of us don't pay that much attention now anymore. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We don't know every turn we took but we get there. I think that's what AI agents are able to do. So it's very transformative, where you are not teaching them every single thing, but you're giving them the end goal and they will get there. And as a result, vast amount of work. Let me give you an example how dramatic it is. Let's say in some large companies, there are 1,000 people. I know an example. 1,000 people work for a year to calculate taxes for a very large corporation. That entire work, a platform like ours can do that in 3 hours. So that's like many-fold, 1,000 people doing, because you're looking at all these laws and trying to apply those laws to the numbers. But that's a whole, that's what the systems are good at. They can process vast amount of data, far more than human being could. No human being is particularly great at remembering 183,000 rules. That's not even a competition.
Yeah. Have you partnered with Elon yet and gotten in the government? Start,
There is
making things more
there
efficient?
is lots of opportunities there for sure.
Uh-huh. Are there any like myths right now in the AI space that people are still believing, that you hear it from people where you're like, okay, you're well informed and you're saying that, like, that you don't agree with?
Today's excitement is all about infrastructure play. So if you think about NVIDIA and the cloud providers, then everybody who is doing something on AI, and that's where majority of the profits and revenue is. But at the beginning of any category, the infrastructure is how it starts. Think about internet and AOL. Now, if you don't know about what an AOL is, I'm proving my point, which is, for those of us who know, that's how internet started. But the applications that are built on top of this infrastructure is 100 times bigger opportunity, right? And unbelievable. We can now see it on internet, amazing things that have almost so many trillion-dollar companies only exist because they're on top of internet. So your biggest excitement is in application space and not where it is today, although it is the right place to start.
Yeah.
So if you're an entrepreneur, you want to go where puck is going and not where it is. And the application space will go unbelievably big. And just like I'm going to say this and you can hold me to it, just like there are trillion-dollar companies that only exist as a result of internet, there will be trillion-dollar companies that only exist as a result of AI. That is the real opportunity. Now, we already know of one NVIDIA. There will be many more.
Yep. What are ones that are maybe people aren't even thinking about right now that will become the trillion-dollar industries if you were to bet? Because I would believe where your bets are going based off what you've already built. So what are you thinking are those spaces?
I think some industries are ripe for a huge transformation. So if you think about an insurance industry, collection of set of rules, set of systems, processes, connecting them. No reason why 80% of it cannot be fully autonomous, right? I mean, there are always certain aspects where we need to talk to a human being to solve some complicated issues, but otherwise, most of it could be autonomous. Think about banking industry. So today, banking industry serves about 15% of the population because that's the only one they can serve in a cost-effective way. The other 85% of the population is. You can easily imagine a banking system that is significantly autonomous. Its cost of delivering is lower. Its cost of judging risk and various possibilities is better. And imagine what happens if they just double it. I'm not asking serve 85%. Just serve the next 15% of the people. See how far world has come with the banking serving 15%. What could happen for the next 15, 20% audience? So I think in healthcare, it is unbelievable to me that something as important as health, we treat it the same way. And it has primarily to do with the cost structure, right? So I take the same medicine you would take because it's unaffordable to customize it. Go figure. If it hurts your organs, so be it, but that's not affordable. If it is customized for your needs, what all possibilities exist, and why wouldn't we do it that way? There is no reason why wouldn't do it that way. I can go on. In every industry, there is an opportunity to reimagine. I think most of the things we do it because it's constrained by our old way of working, right? That's how most systems are designed.
Yep.
Like I already saw this in one industry where the auditors in finance, they used to, and many of them still do, they do a sampling of 10% of the transactions to audit something. And that entire phenomena exists because of limitation. And now the audit firms who are cutting edge, now they use AI to audit 100% of the transaction. So many of our ways of thinking is started with certain limitation that no longer exist.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting hearing, you betting on the applications built on, the operational level, because like what a lot of the noise is about is sometimes like, those LLMs, like the people who are working on the infrastructure, like that's where a lot of noise comes from. But then you're like, wait, there's like way more opportunities of everything that's built on top. And then just plug into the best one, most likely.
That's
Like if you
right.
think DeepSeek is the best, go plug into that one. But like don't be
Yeah,
building that
use
one, maybe.
multiple use multiple.
Yeah.
Ask both of them and pick one.
When you talk about these things, especially when it comes to like the industries and, where you see the world headed, do you ever get pushback from people? Like what do people strongly disagree with you on, or where have you gotten the most pushback?
The actual challenge, and even if people don't push back, I remind them that the rate of change is fast. And so, are we doing everything we can to change that fast? Our governments have to change, our companies have to change, and our education institutes have to change. This will happen one way or the other because it has now reached a certain point where if company A doesn't do it, company B will do it. If country A doesn't do it, country B will do it, right? So it's going to happen regardless. So A, how do we keep pace with it? And B, how do we take everybody with us? Because the knowledge and the skills and the relationships people have, I mentioned earlier, these are all the people we have on the planet. So, reskilling them, retraining them. The technology is moving faster and we are not preparing people fast enough. We think we have more time and we don't. These things look like they're far and until they're very close. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the time frame is that people are betting on right now versus what do you actually think it is? Like how quickly people need to be reskilled by?
In many companies, including ours, so I'm mentioning it because it's a reality for us, where 90% of taxes are automated, fully autonomous. Certain percent of all HR transactions is fully autonomous. Certain supply chain functions are fully autonomous. So as many large companies begin to do that, the people need to acquire skills on how to use AI tools to do them. Because if they do it, they have the knowledge of how to do it. I think the way I put it is that it's not clear that you will lose your job to AI, but it is absolutely clear that you will lose your job to somebody else using AI. That much is clear. So if that's true, why isn't everybody using AI today and tomorrow and this quarter? And how can we get there? I wish everybody start with an assumption that 20 to 80% of my job will be automated. And it is my job to find out which part, how, and when, because if I'm leading that, I am in charge. I can shape it to fit me, my team, my company. And so I'm shaping the future. Otherwise, some version of the future will be dictated to me 2 years from now.
Good reminders. So, I mean, the space that you're in right now, it's changing so rapidly. I feel like there's just so many more advancements by the day. How do you go about having to probably disrupt yourself multiple times while this is happening? Like, what are you all doing over there to stay so relevant as you are?
Yeah. You surround yourself with smart people and don't assume you know the answer. So you keep asking the question, keep learning from people. Fortunately, we live in a world with amazing smart people. And asking this question of a better way to work and what is a 3-step process. I think I'm going to come to 1 step someday. But I'm starting with 3-step process of how to get to an answer. Just that alone has allowed us to reimagine possibilities. And it shed light on how ineffective we are at working. That aspect of the work hasn't changed for the last 70, 80 years. What we used to maybe do by fax or a phone call, we do it by email. Better, but we really need 32 emails for that. We at Automation, we have an amazing team. I mentioned we are announcing the level 5 agents.
Yeah. Tell me about that. I want to hear about what level 5 agent means.
So in the world of agency, as it is called, AI agents, there are 7 levels of agents. 7 being a godlike, just to put it in perspective, and 1 doing basic AI intelligent tasks. The 6th layer it's a general intelligence where I can ask that agent to do almost anything and it will do above average job of it. So we are at a stage where we will announce level 5 agents. These are self-reflective agents. These are the highest level of agents that will be available in the world today. where agent would do something, reflect upon what they have done, and learn from it and do better next time. The fact that these things are here, I mean, if we are announcing it, you can imagine it works in our lab today. So
Yeah.
unbelievable possibilities ahead.
So tell me more about the reflecting on their work and then adjusting it. So would they do something, which I would assume like they still could mess up like a human maybe, and they'd be like, wait, that was the wrong thing. And they would learn it by themselves and then adjust their
That's
actions
right.
going forward.
Or even if they
Okay.
succeeded and they got some outcome, they will say, "Is this the outcome? Could I do a better outcome?"
Yep.
And the next time onwards, I'll improve it by 10% next time I do this. And how do I achieve that? Self-reflection, that word is a very human meaning to it. In AI world, that happens differently, not quite the same way. But it's a very powerful thing. Most of us are where we are because of this unique ability to self-reflect, right? That's how we chart our path forward. And having that capability gives agent a unique opportunity to keep improving. I mean, imagine an agent that is processing, we see this in our labs where you're processing million claims. First of all, no human being has processed million claims, but an AI agent can. And after every one of them, it is figuring it out how to do it better. After processing million, it's the best claims processing agent you have on the planet, period. There is no competition.
Yep.
Because it has learned from every one of them.
Wow. Okay. And who are your clients for you? Because can it be everything from like small business owners all the way up to, I'm sure, large enterprise using you? Or like, what's your typical
So we have
client?
over 5,000 customers in 90 countries across all the 18 industries, so a much broader reach. We have roughly maybe half of the Fortune 500 companies. So at the top level, every large company uses us. Roughly 6 out of 10 largest banks, 6 out of 10 large healthcare companies, and so forth. A large number of mid-sized companies and many startups who are, when they're starting, they are not transforming themselves. They are starting with the agent world and saying, I'm not going to build the other world. I'm just going to build the new way. So across the board. And it's exciting to see learning from each of them, because I tell people that we have millions of lines of smart AI code, but that's not as exciting as what people do with it and how they use it. And sometimes people use it beyond what you had designed for, and you say, whoa, this is unbelievable,
Yeah, I know just from this conversation, I already started thinking about, I'm like, what could I do at my company that could be goal-oriented and have agents on?
Yeah.
So it's already got my wheels spinning. It's good. Okay, so one thing that we've heard come up a lot throughout many of our shows, not just this one, is around reskilling and wondering, like when it comes to reskilling, whose responsibility is it? Who should be footing the bill for it? Is it the employee? Is it the employer? Like, how do we think about this concept of upskilling, reskilling the workforce?
It is everybody's responsibility, and each one should take it upon themselves and not wait for the other. So if I'm an employer, which I am, my people have the relationship, they have the knowledge of our organization, the skill set required. What better way to transform to an AI-driven organization, but than to reskill of my own employees? That's the best outcome I could hope for. And don't underestimate the power of human relationships, because AI doesn't do anything that you don't you have to tell them what to do. So, and those things comes from relationships and agreements that people make. And so it is a huge incentive to retrain your people. Imagine if I got half the work from outside, even if I could get it, the organizations wouldn't work. So I'm usually incentivized to reskill my team. If I'm an employee, I have my career beyond an employer, today's employer, because if they are not transforming in AI, then my next job is with an employer that works with AI. And who knows, am I going to wait till my employer is going to figure out the future of my job role? I tell my employees that, look, I am not smart enough to tell you future of all of your job roles. I am not. I don't know the future of every aspect of finance role, every aspect of HR. I mean, you know your role better than I do. So take the charge and define the future role of whatever you do and reinvent. And hope you do it at Automation Anywhere. And if not at Automation Anywhere, go do sell somewhere else. It's about your careers, and I think both have a role to play. The third one that you didn't mention, but I think education institutes needs to move very fast, because the one thing we need to do is stop teaching the old skill and start teaching the new as much as possible, so that we are adding a workforce that's ready for this, for the world they are entering into.
Well, then, do you have any thoughts on education? Because that's a tricky one, looking at how still all of them are built. I don't really see many yet that I'm like, oh yeah, they can keep up with technology and these companies and like how fast things are moving. I don't see any. So what do you think?
It's not enough fast movement. We announced an Automation Anywhere university many years ago. So we trained about 1 million people on AI skills. And what we found was that within 3 months, we could take a person who was flipping burgers at $15 an hour to a $120,000 AI job. So what we landed upon is, maybe you don't need 2 or 4 year degrees. You need this 3 months of AI skills in your respective area. And by combining skills you already had and combining with AI, you can do amazing things. And you're very uniquely positioned in the economy today. Over the years, we've taken it to 700 women in Africa and Mississippi Delta in the US, which is a poor part of the United States, and Nepal and India and all parts of the world. And we have seen this play out consistently, where many people who don't have to unlearn anything are much faster to adopt. They are more natural at, and they are immediately able to accelerate with this new technology and able to make a huge movement in their social growth, and economic growth. So it is relatively easy if we can get behind it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
People are amazing everywhere. They just need an opportunity to apply that.
Yep. I love it. And I love your optimistic view, by the way. Ever since the first time we talked, I'm like, finally, someone who's like optimistic about the future and what we're doing and what we're building here. And like, it's easy. It's easy. So it's cool. So thank you for bringing that.
Change is hard for people, to be precise.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't change fast enough, but it is still in our hand to, how fast we change. We have done it over many years in many industrial revolutions. I think we've gotten wiser as a result of it, that we understand that these things have to transform. We just need to get behind it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, with the last couple minutes of this conversation, I want to do a quick lightning round with you. So lightning round is where I send a question your way and you have less than a minute to answer. So you just kind of whatever comes up first. Are you ready?
Ready.
The first one, what are 2 of the most influential books that you've ever read before that have influenced your life, your career, anything that come to mind?
Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's about a story about a seagull that goes beyond looking for food. Another book was Goal. It told us about how we need to think about work differently. Sometimes if 2 people didn't work, we'll produce more. It's a very different way to think about work. And Selling the Wheel, which is a book about how you sell innovation. And it's an interesting read, all 3 of them.
Ooh, and those are 3 that no one's ever mentioned before. So
okay,
that's unique. All right. If you were not running and building and growing Automation Anywhere, what would you be doing?
I like hiking in the nature, and I do that while I'm at Automation Anywhere. Every year I take a peak. I take one of the peaks to climb. My work life is in automation and AI, and my leisure is in nature, enjoying the world that we live in.
I think that's good. That's what I am constantly pushing people back into. Get in nature, get out there, learn from that. That's good. How would your team describe your leadership style?
I hope collaborative, empowering, challenge the status quo, always thinking about what a future looks like and how do we get ready for it, so that we are not disrupted ourselves.
That's good. Okay, well, then that brings me to another question I just thought of, which is, how are you staying on top of the future? Like, what are you reading? What are you learning about? How do you stay ahead?
I read books, and lately some of the summaries of the book. That way I could cover a lot more ideas and then If some of them appeal to me more, I would read the whole book. And then partly meeting some of my peers, leaders of AI industries, and private meetings and dinners and conferences, and sitting together and having sometimes a long 1 hour conversation. Or maybe a conversation with no end time in mind. That's when, like on a Saturday, you're sitting somewhere and it ends when it ends. And that's when you feel like, okay, you mentally moved forward from where you were, at the beginning of the day.
That's cool. I didn't realize all you AI leaders were collaborating and meeting. I mean, that's maybe not all, but whoever is meeting with you, like that's pretty fun. I wouldn't have thought about that.
There's so much knowledge out there, and so many people are trying out things, and you're trying to figure out what's working, what's not working.
Mihir, thank you for coming on Mission Daily. This is super fun having you here. Where can people find out more about you and what you're up to at Automation Anywhere?
I think we got a very fantastic team at Automation Anywhere. If you go to automationanywhere.com, you can find out some of the amazing things we are doing and what we are passionate about. I think if you like something, to keep in mind that start thinking how to automate 20 to 80% of what you could do. And you are in the best position to figure that out. So take charge and let us know how we can help.
Amazing. Thank you, Mihir.